I think we're all ready to roll here. Can I go ahead, Roger?
Yes, absolutely. Why don't you start out? We can call the meeting to order, and then we'll go into the roll call, and we'll just follow our script.
Okay, sounds very good. Looks like my participants line is still showing 74 people that are sticking with us here. So welcome to you all, and thank you for participating with us today. Hopefully this is going to be a short and sweet meeting, which seems appropriate for Valentine's Day in February. Today we'll be looking at the schedule for the Interconnection Cluster 16, but I did want to alert our interested stakeholders that the substantive transmission queue improvements are in development. As many of you know, you're working on them, and they are still on schedule to come to the board for a recommendation in consideration in May. So with that, I will turn it over to Roger to go ahead with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Shorey, and welcome as chair. And we'll start with you, Chair Shorey.
Here.
Vice Chair Bornstein.
Here.
Governor Edo.
Here.
Governor Galitova.
Here.
And Governor Leslie.
Here.
Thank you. We do have our quorum and a full complement of our board, and we may proceed. Back to you, Chair Shorey.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we always allow the opportunity for general public comment for any items which are not on today's agenda. We wouldn't be able to take any action, but we can certainly take your concerns into consideration. If anybody has anything they'd like to bring up, now is the time to hit your phone audio or send us a note.
If you'd like to make a public comment, you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or you can press #2 on our phone only line.
Thank you.
And it seems like there are no hands up in the queue at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for your assistance with that. I think our next item then is to consider the December 14th, 2023 general session minutes. Roger?
Yes, thank you, Chair Shorey. Can I have a motion to approve the December 14, 2023 general session minutes for the Board of Governors?
So moved.
Thank you, Angelina.
Second.
I think Mary won on that one, and we'll now take the vote. It's not like winning the lottery, but it's the best we can do today. Chair Shorey, your vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Bornstein?
Aye.
Governor Edo?
Aye.
Governor Galitova?
Aye.
And Governor Leslie, excuse me.
Aye.
Thank you. We have the motion passes. Back to you, Chair Shorey.
Thank you, Roger. At this point, I'm pleased to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Elliot Mainzer, for your report.
Thank you, Chair Shorey and governors. I know that the theme of this afternoon is efficiency, so I'm going to try to I will keep my CEO report. I'm just going to call out a couple of highlights, but I will note, I know you all had a chance to see this, there is a ton of substantive work and real progress going on. So I do hope everyone has a chance to take a look at the whole report. It reflects a lot of work from a lot of people across the region. Obviously, we're coming out of another extreme weather event. Long line of, we're now finding that summer is challenging, but now the winters are continuing to prove themselves challenging as well. Again, another time where we've seen just the tremendous value of regional coordination, cooperation. We had a number of entities during the Martin Luther King Day holiday who found themselves in EEA, different stages of energy emergency alerts, the energy imbalance market coordination with the RC, the use of assistance energy transfers, all really paid off in helping to retain reliability for all of us. And so thank you to everybody who participated on that. One I did note that this was the first time across this 3-day period of the Martin Luther King Day holiday that the transmission lines from California north to northwest were loaded at full capacity on the AC system around the clock for 3 days straight. And so just another example of the benefits of transmission connectivity and the value of regional diversity. And hats off to everybody across the West who worked so well to maintain reliability during what was a very challenging event. As we know, we are always extremely focused on making sure that we're able to onboard all of the new resources that are planned as part of California's path to SB 100 implementation. Last year was no exception. We finished the year with 5,660 megawatts of new resources on board and fully operational, and another 1,134 megawatts in commercial operations testing, which means they'll come on in the following months. We have now passed the 7,188 megawatt threshold for battery storage on the CAISO grid. Again, testament to a lot of vision, a lot of hard work, a lot of folks. The WM benefits report for Q4 came out last week. Another amazing milestone at over $5 billion of financial and environmental benefits for customers. Of course, the reliability benefits also belong in the top of the headline as well, as we saw earlier in January. And I think increasingly, I think we're recognizing that all of us are benefiting from the reliability and resilience value of our connectivity. So hats off to everybody, and really pleased to see us cross such a significant milestone. And then, of course, with the EDAM, the approval, the broad approval from FERC of our EDAM filing, with the one exception of the historical transmission revenue recovery, was a major milestone for us. We are very excited to be turning our attention now to implementation. I will also note that the deadline to file a request for rehearing of the Commission's order on EDAM passed last month without any submission, which means that the order is now final, and we really are able to move into implementation and the fine tuning of the TRR element. So lots of work there. It was great earlier today to hear from PacifiCorp in the joint meeting about their work on implementation, really leading the charge. And so it's exciting to have the policy in great shape and really rolling up our sleeves towards implementation. On the subscriber participating transmission owner model, as you recall, late last year, we did receive a deficiency letter from FERC on that. On January 12th, we filed a response to the questions that focused on the mechanics surrounding the non-subscriber usage rate for that transmission line. I think it was a good response. There were comments on our response. We're due on February 2nd. There were no comments, so we're looking forward to the Commission's ruling on that. I also wanted to note that in early January, we also received an application from Pattern Energy for its SunZia transmission line to become a subscriber PTO within our system as well. So this is another very interesting development in Western Transmission Development. A public notice about the application, the stakeholder review process it initiates was posted on January 24th. Stakeholders now have 60 days to comment on the application from the day of the notice, with comments due by March 25th. So again, as we build out the backbone of the grid in California, we're also working, I think, very proactively and very collaboratively with entities across the West to continue to strengthen the broader Western grid as well, and bring benefits to multiple parties. Turning briefly to the interconnection process enhancements phase 2, tomorrow, excited to the team after just a really intensive engagement through the working group process. Ton of work, great input from a very wide group of stakeholders. We will be releasing the draft final proposal, expected to go out tomorrow. So that's a major milestone. Looking forward to that additional round of input. We are very committed to making transformational change in interconnection queuing here within the ISO, and working very closely with our partners in state government, the utilities, the IPPs, the advocacy community, to make sure that our full framework of integrated planning between power, transmission, queuing, and procurement really works together, so we can take friction out of the system and get those resources onboarded. That is something that we take very seriously. So we're excited for that final round of feedback and be bringing that proposal back to you for a decision in May. So that's currently on track. Also wanted to note, as you'll hear a little bit later from Neil Miller, our Vice President of Infrastructure and Operations Planning, we will also be suggesting that those reforms necessitate postponement of our next interconnection window, otherwise known as Cluster 16, which had been set to open this April. It's important to recall that the ISO's interconnection queue now contains more than 160 gigawatts of resources, with an additional 354 gigawatts that came in the Cluster 15 application window in 2023. And we really do need to implement the new FERC requirements and the interconnection process enhancements reforms to process these interconnection requests in a timely manner and maintain the necessary pace of onboarding of new resources. So again, thanks to everybody for the amazing work on that effort. I note in the CEO report that we've also made some final changes to our deliverability assessment methodology. We've had a lot of input on that from stakeholders, trying to find the right balance between reliability and adherence to core RA principles and procedures, but also making sure that we're not being overly conservative in our assumptions. I think we've struck a nice balance, and I think several of the changes that we've made will be able to be implemented in the 2024 transmission plan deliverability allocation process, and could actually provide some additional TPD allocations, or at least remove some upgrade requirements for certain projects. And then finally, on the transmission service and market scheduling priorities design, we've made some really important progress here. In January, we started manual implementation of the recently approved transmission service and market scheduling priorities design. Actually, on January 16th, we published the monthly available transfer capability numbers on select interties for next summer, for June 2024 and beyond. And then on the 18th through the 31st of January, we opened a request window where market participants were able to submit ATC requests for the upcoming summer to establish wheeling through priorities across our system. So this is a very important step. We know this is very important for folks to start engaging in their forward transactions. So for the months of February and March, January, we've been doing this on a manual basis, expecting to have full automation in place for the summer. Aiming for April, that will automate the ATC publication, request submission, and evaluation prior to the summer. So and that will, of course, also enable the reservation of daily ATC for establishing wheeling through priority in June and beyond. So a lot there. Whizzed through that pretty quickly. So Mary, I see that you have a question. Happy to take that if I could.
Yeah, no, I think this was a really thorough report. I did read it ahead of time. It's excellent. My question is, do you think all this work has paid off over the last couple of years? And as we, start to predict our summer readiness and fall, how it positions us? And also, will you comment on sort of this interesting phenomena where from 2020, when we were in trouble and needed help, and now we're really in a position where we're powering others who need quite a bit of export power.
Well, thank you. Well, certainly over the last several years, California has brought on close over 12,000 megawatts of new resources onto the system, and the dispatchable capability, especially with the battery fleet and the other energy resources, has certainly brought some additional assurance of reliability for our challenging net peak periods. I think there's been phenomenal coordination with the state regulatory bodies, the utilities, both inside California and outside of California. We will continue to do our tabletop exercising here going into the summer and working on our summer readiness playbook. We'll be doing all of the rehearsal of that well in advance of the summer and just making sure we're as sharp as possible. So we're feeling certainly, I guess I would say, less guardedly optimistic. There's still a little bit guarded in there. We all know that we still are exposed to very, very extreme and unpredictable events. And that's always the thing that we watch. But certainly in terms of coordination, making sure that the resource stack is as strong as possible, and that the interties are managed effectively, and that we're making sure that the system is in as good a shape as possible. I think we're making progress. That said, this is a long-term project. Every single year we're going to be keeping our head down on resource adequacy, bringing those resources on board, and continuing to look for ways to take friction out of the system. So definitely improvements, but this is a long-term assignment.
Great, thank you, Elliot. An excellent report. Are there any other questions from any of the other board members? Okay, if not, then we will move along, and it looks like it's time for me to introduce our WEIM governing body chair, Andy Campbell, for your report. Thank you for those nice words about me at the earlier meeting. That was very kind of you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Shorey, Vice Chair Borenstein, and governors. Thank you for inviting me to share updates from the governing body's general session meeting, which was yesterday. So a theme that came up several times during the meeting is how the broad footprint of the Western EIM has enabled the market to be a critical source of reliability during extreme weather events. We heard from Guillermo Bautista Alderete. He reviewed the fourth quarter 2023 benefits report. It was a stellar quarter with the market enabling a diversity of energy flows between participants. Haley Williamson, Chair of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and Chair of the Body of State Regulators, reported on their recent activities. And then Regional Issues Forum Chair Josh Walter from Seattle City Light described plans for a March 18th meeting in Folsom, just prior to our meetings, where stakeholders will provide input for the ISO's policy roadmap. This is the first time they've taken this on. This is a recommendation coming out of the Governance Review Committee that we adopted it jointly. Becky Robinson, Director of Market Policy Development, provided an update on policy initiatives. There's a lot in motion. Her presentation gets longer each time because there's so many initiatives going through the process right now. Our updates include a report on the price formation enhancements working groups. This initiative is looking at scarcity pricing, market power mitigation, and fast start pricing, all issues of great interest to market participants. She also discussed the Greenhouse Gas Coordination Working Group and how it is accommodating state level climate policies, which have continued to evolve in several states. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Andy. Does anybody have any questions for Andy? Nope. Short and sweet. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to be moving along then to our main decision item on today's agenda item number 5, which is to consider postponing Cluster 16 the interconnection request application window. And I think Neil Miller is going to do the presentation.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I will be turning the mic over to Bob Emmert, our Senior Manager of Interconnection Resources, to walk through the actual presentation on what we do believe is a relatively straightforward decision item regarding our interconnection process. The decision is, as Elliot noted, to ask you today to seek FERC's approval to delay opening the next interconnection application window that would otherwise take place in April of this year. Before I turned it over to Bob, though, I also wanted to thank Bob, the ISO team, and our stakeholders for the excellent and robust collaboration that's gotten us to this point. That effort is on track to file our FERC Order 2023 compliance filing in April, and as both Elliot and Chair Shorey noted, to bring our interconnection process enhancements that go beyond that order to you in May of this year. So just to set the stage there. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob. Bob?
All right, thank you, Neil. And let's go to the next slide, please. So as Neil stated, we are seeking your approval to postpone the Cluster 16 interconnection request application window beyond 2024. And we typically open an interconnection request window for new applications for a new cluster every April. And so typically what that happens is we open the window, and then that kicks off a 2-year interconnection study process to study the projects that we receive in that particular cluster. However, we are seeking to delay Cluster 16 beyond the April 2024 timeline that's spelled out in the tariff, because we need to address a number of issues, such as timelines with the FERC compliance filing requirements and our own process enhancement process. We need to finish those processes, filings with FERC, and get orders from them in order to proceed with Cluster 15, as well as just manage the large volume of existing projects that are currently in the cluster study process. If we could go to the next slide. And so as you're aware that we've had recent application windows that have resulted in unprecedented and unsustainable volumes of interconnection request projects. The queue now stands at roughly 185 gigawatts of projects that have been fully studied, ready to go, just seeking PPAs or have already received PPAs and are working to come online. And there's an additional 347 gigawatts within Cluster 15 that we received in April 2023 that is actually on hold at this point, yet to be studied. We have a FERC order number 2023 that sets new standards and timelines for the interconnection process, and we are required to make a compliance filing on that order by April 3rd of this year. So we're busy working on that. And we're also working with stakeholders very diligently to come up with transformational changes in our interconnection process enhancement initiatives that build on the FERC Order 2023 changes. And the ISO intends to present the Track 2 interconnection process enhancement reforms to the ISO board in May of this year. If we go to the next slide. So the ISO has been working with stakeholders on this particular issue. We've had discussions within our working groups that we've had face-to-face and virtual. We've put out 2 papers in September and December that have discussed this issue. So stakeholders are fully aware of this, and within those papers in the comment period, stakeholders did not provide any comments related to those postponement. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion for stakeholders that this is a necessary item that we have to deal with. And stakeholders are fully engaged with the interconnection process enhancement initiative, working to transform the future of the interconnection request process and study process. And they understand that the FERC Order 2023 will impact that schedule for Cluster 16 and beyond. So thank you. So in closing, as we continue to work on the transformational changes, the ISO proposes to the timeline for opening the Cluster 16 and FERC Order in our filing to the FERC Order 2023. So when we file in April, we'll be proposing what we think will be the appropriate time for opening the Cluster 16 window. And the April FERC filing for our compliance, and also the May FERC filing on our interconnection process enhancements reform, will seek approval for the complete package of interconnection reforms needed for Cluster 16 and beyond. So FERC will be working on both the compliance filing as well as our interconnection reform filings. And so we'll be waiting for an order on both of those filings in order to move forward with Cluster 16. So with
Do you
that,
have any feel for when that might be, or that's just completely dependent upon FERC's processing?
yes, and the thing that makes it a little bit difficult to predict is when we do a 205 filing, the way we will file our interconnection process reform filing, there's a specific timeline that FERC has to reply to us, but within a compliance filing, they don't have a deadline. And they're going to be getting a lot of compliance filings April 3rd. So it's hard to predict how fast they'll be able to turn around an order. At the same time, I'm sure FERC is well aware that everything has been put on hold, waiting for their orders to come back to us. So I'm sure they'll be trying to get their orders out quickly. But again, that's a pretty hefty workload of dealing with all the filings that we receive in April.
Right. Do any of the other board members have any questions for Bob or Neil? Nope. Everybody's shaking. Okay. With that, I think it's time for public comment. Could we open the lines and inquire if there is anyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment on this item?
As a reminder to attendees, you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or #2 on the phone line if you would like to make a public comment. And it appears we do have one hand up in the comment queue. Matthew Plummer, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Excuse me, Matthew Plummer, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, FERC and ISO Director. Board of Governors, PG&E supports CAISO management's recommendation to delay the application window for Cluster 16. As staff noted in the presentation, the delay will allow for CAISO and stakeholders to complete and implement the interconnection enhancements currently under consideration in a separate initiative. It will also allow for adequate time to restart the Cluster 15 process. For these reasons, PG&E supports the delay to Cluster 16 application window and requests the CAISO board approve this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate those comments. Any other, anyone else would like to make a comment?
Seems there are no further hands up in the queue at this time.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your assistance. Okay, with that, then it's time for a motion. So I think I turn it over to Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Shorey. Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves the ISO's proposal to not open an interconnection request application window in 2024, as set forth in the memorandum dated January 31, 2024, and move that the ISO Board of Governors authorizes management to make all necessary and appropriate filings with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to implement the change proposed in this memorandum, including any filings that implement the overarching initiative policy, but contain discrete revisions to incorporate commission guidance in any initial ruling on the proposed tariff amendment. Can I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
And the vote be Vice Chair Bornstein,
Aye.
Governor Eto,
Aye.
Governor Galetova,
Aye.
Governor Leslie,
Aye.
and Chair Shorey.
Aye.
Thank you, governors. The motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, with that, speedy as we are at this meeting, agenda item 6 is our informational reports. Do any of the members of the board have any questions you'd like to ask or comments you'd like to make on the informational reports that are part of this package, which include the business practice manual change management update, the quarterly financial report, the regulatory report, the state, regional, and federal affairs update, and the WEIM benefits and market report for Q4 2023. Any questions or comments from anyone? No? Okay, well, that brings us then to ask, does any member of the board have an item that you would like to schedule on a future agenda that you'd like to bring up right now? You can do it later too.
No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. Okay, with that, and then for the board members that are continuing on into the closed session, I think we'll try and move up the closed session, which was not scheduled to start until 3:30. I have 10 minutes to 3. Could we make it back by 5 after 3? Give everybody 15 minutes and resume in 15 minutes for those on the board that will be here. Is that okay?
I think that would be great. And
Okay.
hearing no objections, and we do have a separate line for that.
Okay, all right. So we all know we need to close this out. Thank you for your participation today. We had a good turnout for the meeting, and I made it through my first one. Yay! So we
You got gold.
survived.
You got gold.
Congratulations.
You didn't
Okay,
need any.
We're
You
adjourned.
didn't.
Thanks a lot.
You did not
Thanks,
need
everybody.
any bumper rails like we have in our quantum analysis.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you all so much to our speakers, and thank you all in the audience for joining us today. The conference has now concluded, and you may please disconnect.